You're all welcome to this segment of our training video. If you were following us in the last video, we spent some time discussing classroom management approaches. We had observed the methods, the conventional methods that a forceful teacher, inexperienced teacher will employ to extort respect, obedience, and compliance to rules from his learners. And we compare that with about three of the methods that could be applied by an efficient teacher to get the best from the learners and the learning. And so we want to reenact them in this video before we continue to state the others and discuss them. Remember, we had discussed that a more efficient teacher will employ the following approaches. We had summarized them into five, and we said behavior, place and environment, expectations, materials, and activities. So we had discussed the behavior and the place and environment in our previous, including expectations in our previous video. Now we're going to spend some time discussing materials as well as the activities. And so let's consider what we will term as the approach a teacher will employ in the use of materials. In materials, this will involve the type of text that the teacher is using and how he uses them. For instance, means of the activities in numeracy, that is in numbers, in dealing with numbers, and in dealing with language practice, I have exercises and activities in the text that are used. And these texts that are used, how does the teacher use them in class? How does he involve all the students or the learners? This will ensure that they have that cordial relationship. And with this practice going on regularly in class, there will come to be that cooperation within the class, the teacher and his learners. And so that environment will engender peace, unity, respect, and mutual understanding of one another. We also have the use of equipments. If lessons involve use of certain items to facilitate the lesson, how are they being used? Do all learners have access to these? We also have types of teaching aids, whether the audio, the audio visuals, or even the improvised that the teacher designs. Do all the learners have access to them? Does he give them personalized attention? Does he always ensure that each of them has a role to play in group functions so that they can relate with him? Because at this point, the teacher is working with the learners in group activities. And so that togetherness, that unity in working together in the class also engenders cooperation, respect. And so that helps the teacher to appropriately achieve his objective of classroom management. And then we also look at activities. How do activities culminate in good classroom management? The kind of learning experiences that teachers design to engage the learner's interest, passion, and intellectual curiosity will go a long way to strengthen confidence in the learners. And then the learning approaches that he adopts to satisfy the learner's style of learning, the design of lesson plan and content presentation, the way he does all of this, especially in a way that the learner becomes the center of attention. The learner is the one who is practically involved, while he just guides them in the content description and explanation. This will engender a spirit of harmony, closeness, and cooperation. Note that poorly designed lessons, uninteresting learning materials, unclear expectations contribute to greater students who become disinterested in anything that has to do with academics. Restlessness, frustration, increased behavioral problems, being unruly, and disorganized classrooms. And that is why it is important that the teacher pays close attention to his learning, to the classroom management skills and methods. Whilst the specific techniques used to manage classroom to facilitate learning can vary widely in terminology, purpose, and execution, the following approaches that we will give here represent examples that have worked generally. We are now looking at what are some of the approaches in classroom management that could be adopted. We have also summarized them into subheads such as entry routine, do now, tight transition, sit signal, probes, non-verbal intervention, positive group correction, do it again. We're going to take some of them in this video as much as our time will accommodate, and in our next video we will try our best to conclude them. Now let's look at some of these techniques that have worked for many. We begin with the first one, entry routine. Entry routine. This is a technique in which the teacher establishes a consistent daily routine that begins as soon as the learners enter into the classroom, preparing learning materials, making seat assignment, submitting homework, and doing a brief physical or mental warm-up activity so as to ensure that the children enter into the classroom activities proper with ease. Now, in many schools, they have designed what we call mental exercise activities in the morning, where the children resume school before even they are engaged in the assembly program. They go to their classes and they have this warm-up or entry routine activities. These entry routine activities help them to settle in class. Some of these entry routine activities could be some activities to work on in numeracy or number work or mathematics, in language structure or communication, and the children know that is a routine. Each day, however, the teacher could specify what form of routines will be done in specific days, perhaps on a Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Fridays in the morning. And so when the children come into school, they know exactly what they're expected to do on a day, and they settle down into it. They do not have time to play around waiting for assembly to start. They're already down into doing something productive, and the teacher supervises this routine. Some of these routines that the teacher provides in the morning do not specifically engage the teacher and the learner at the same time, but the learner can do so independently, and they can enjoy the activities that they are doing. These techniques help to keep all learners organized on the same psychological platform with the teacher, and keeps away disorderly activities that take away time and distract learners from settling into the beginning of the day. The second one we are going to look at is do now. I'm sure you're taking notes of these methods that we are projecting. The second one is do now. The one we just discussed is entry routine. Now we are discussing do now. This represents a brief written activity that learners are given as soon as they arrive in class. This technique is intended to get learners settled, focused, productive, and collectively prepared for learning as quickly as possible. It is a short exercise as well that the children, the learners, carry out, especially as short as the time in which they are going to remain in class before they are called up for the assembly or gathering morning worship program. Then the important thing about this activity is that it helps the children to settle into the day's work when they do return back from the assembly. We also have a tight transition. This is a technique where a teacher establishes transition routines that learners learn and can execute quickly and repeatedly without much direction from the teacher. This is tight transitions, activities that help them to switch from one either lesson to another or from one theme to another theme within the class discussion of content, and they do so without due supervision from the class teacher. The class teacher does not supervise them in some of these routines. The children are up to the task, and so the teacher uses these routines or these tight transitions to help switch the children from one lesson to another or from one activity to another. For example, a teacher might establish reading time, and the learner know that they are expected to stop whatever they are doing when they are called up or when the time is up. In Primordial Academy, these two activities we have just considered in the preceding theme and this one are apt. Why? Because we have introduced that from the beginning of this school. We have used the mental exercise and the reading program to help our children to be good learners, and to correct areas of deformity that they may have in certain areas. So we want teachers to take these activities seriously, as the school is intended to supervise them and ensure that they have the maximum benefits for which they are instituted. Now we also have the fourth one, sit signals. Sit signals. This is a technique in which the learners are non-verbal signals, in which the learners use non-verbal signals while seated to indicate that they need something, or they need solutions to a problem, they need to be assisted somehow, or they need a restroom break. They do not have to say it. They use signals. Now, this is very crucial and important because these signals cannot come if the class has not sat together, discussed them, and the students or learners are used to such signals. Sometimes while the lesson is going on or some activity is going on, these non-verbal signals are encoded. The pupils or the learners can alter them to their teacher, and then he understands and permits them to carry out such activities without distracting the entire class that is engaged in some form of activity. So we call them seat signals. They remain in their seat and give those signals, and they are permitted to proceed with whatever they have been approved to do. The fifth one is props, P-R-O-P-S, props. This is an act of publicly recognizing, praising a student or a learner for something good that learner has done, such as answering a question or doing well in a project or in a group activity. Props is done by the entire class and is typically a short movement or spoken phrase. This technique is intended to establish good culture in which learning, accomplishments, or positive results of activities are socially valued and rewarded. Well, in this area, we could have a corner within the class where we have award corners. Both activities for the award and the awardees weekly can be posted so that every week we have awardees for certain brilliant activities that have gone on in class. Is it a class assessment or a test or an activity session in class? Those ones who have achieved the peak could be posted in that corner every week with their names and the activities. It can also be in essay writing. The best essays in class will be posted on that corner every week. So if the learners want to check on those ones who have been prominent in certain weeks, on each week, they will go to that corner. We call that an award corner. By doing so, we'll encourage good response to class activities. We'll encourage students to be hardworking because whatever they do that is right, they are going to be rewarded for it, they are going to be acknowledged, and they are going to be praised. So that is where we are going to end this video. But remember, what we have discussed here, we have looked at certain methods that could be used in managing the classroom, and we say these methods, though technically many teachers have employed certain ways in which they manage their classroom, but these approaches have worked for a good number of teachers, and they are employing them. We mentioned entry routine, we mentioned do now, we mentioned tight transition. We also have seat signals and probes. These are the 5 that we have mentioned. In our next video, we're going to come across others that complement this list. We'll see you in the next video. But before we go, let us also drop an assessment with you that you will ever do and evaluate. What are some of the classroom management techniques that have worked for you? Discuss them with us by writing and sending to our address rdwhite@gmail.com. I'll be pleased to read them and also to guide you through. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next video.